A car crash killed a pedestrian early Monday morning.
Running their engine while parked.
It's obviously really bad.
Information about this double deadly crash, but first let me step out and show you some new pictures.
Hello! Why, as a supposedly intelligent species, are we still choosing to build our societies around pressed hunks of metal in order to get from point A to point B? The existence of cars within our cities is loud, damages our health, gives the earth a big ouchie, and most importantly of all, is not aesthetic. In a word, it sucks, and if you think otherwise, then you're wrong and haven't had the displeasure of experiencing third world inner city driving. Let's elaborate. Every year, over 1.3 million people die as a result of traffic accidents globally. That's 5% of Florida's population every single year. Alright, I realize I'm supposed to be selling you against the idea, so I'll use another example. It's roughly 3 Wyomings. Yes, I know, I thought it'd be like 10. Who wants to live in Wyoming? Hell, if I lived in Wyoming, I'd probably want to be run over as well. I'm Iraqi, I've never set foot in the US, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Add on top of that the countless millions of injuries as a result of traffic accidents, and you end up with a massive death and injury toll, not even mentioning the massive amount of economic waste this generates, because injured people take up hospital beds, don't work, and dead people are, well, you know, dead. Also, look at this crap. All of it. Car park on top of car park on top of car park. Jesus Christ, is that a war zone? A marooned ship, perhaps. The lost city of Atlantis. No, it's just SeaWorld. There's the line. Right there. You have to be Odysseus just to get to the damn gift shop. Less egregious example, but I'll still pass along the point. Look at this. Entire streets just littered, yes, littered, with cars. You can't even see the sidewalk half the time. How many historic or otherwise pleasant streets will we have to lose to these things before we realize a better world is possible? Alright, let's get more boring. As with most things, the Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. Industrialization meant ever bigger cities, which meant people forcibly moved from the countryside into densely packed dwellings in which all the land and buildings were owned by bloated aristocrats or enterprising capitalists. Increased efficiency and centralization of capital meant overproduction of commodities. Overproduction meant crashes.
Alright, Gabe, where do you think the industry will be in the next 10 years?
On the shitter.
This cycle looped on itself and crashed over and over as capitalism usually does, and in our case study example, post-depression USA needed houses. Here comes suburbia, sprawling and littering the landscape with disgusting McMansions and other decaying relics of the American middle class that pushed people way outside the cities, but not their jobs. They stayed in the cities. No public transport system, plus living 40 minutes away from your workplace equals cars.
What kind of place is this?
Let's look at health indicators. In the US, 29% of all greenhouse gas emissions are a direct result of cars. In some parts of India, this percentage is over 40%. Not only this, but this sector also sees the single largest increase in greenhouse gas emissions. This means more smoke in your nose, or more accurately, more atmospheric damage, increased environmental degradation, reduced quality of arable land, melting ice, rising tides, massive climate refugees from incredibly dense urban centers, which means more populist votes for policies that don't inherently change anything, blah blah blah. Revolution! Inshallah. Bringing it back on track, in the UK, environmental pollution as a direct result of cars causes in excess 40,000 deaths every single year. That's not even the worst part, though. At least all your problems end with death. Environmental pollution also heavily increases incidence of bullshit like allergies, bronchitis, asthma, and the more boring stuff like cancer. The impact was actually so large that during the global lockdown as a result of COVID, air pollution levels fell by as high as 64%, with a noticeable contribution from reduced car use. Moving from the fatal to the more benign, although only slightly less so, we have obesity.
Where are you headed?
Each additional hour spent in a car per day was associated with a 6% increase in the likelihood of obesity. That's a verbatim quote. The American Driving Survey found that on average, Americans spend 50.6 minutes in a car per day. Per day! That's 18 days a year. That's a long vacation, man. Let's see how car bros spend this, Americans spend 18 days in their car per year, forge close bonds with their vehicle. Ugh, alright, Sean, just keep it in your pants, please. Motor vehicle ownership was significantly associated with obesity. The research is crystal clear. The more cars in use, the more time spent in traffic, and the longer the distance traveled, the more obese a population is. Not only this, but improved and increased access to public transport has consistently shown to improve health outcomes and reduce long-term health costs. This isn't even mentioning noise pollution, and how severe an effect that has on human health. Arguably more important than health is how everything looks. That's a joke, don't crucify me. Now would you just look at them? Beautiful green spaces, expansive, full of life. The spring of youth makes you not want to kill yourself for once. Now let's compare. I mean, I know I already mentioned this, but Jesus Christ, car infrastructure is hideous. Who actually looks at a 17-lane highway thinking it looks good? Beautiful, vibrant cities entirely ruined by overarching concrete tentacles and double parking. Lush green parks and nature areas torn up for ever more car parks, the entire real estate of a street for like 6 people on the road, meanwhile pedestrians occupy like 5% of the area. Absolutely ridiculous. Furthermore, car infrastructure naturally supports the cancer of American-style suburban living. Suburbia means less density. Less living density means even more cars and more expansive cities that look infinitely more depressing than anything post-Soviet collapsed Russia could ever produce. This Pepsi Man shit isn't real, and you can't convince me that it is. Imagine if instead of all these hideous car parks we had, you know, human parks, with people playing with kids. Hopefully, their kids, you know what yeah. And pets, having picnics, chatting, and just vibing. Local businesses, food stands, all the stuff that makes life worth living. Here's a crazy idea, how about building housing there too? This stuff has already been done before all around the world, genuinely what's stopping us? The worst part of all of this is rather than living in 2050, usually the most valuable room in inner cities gets turned into car parks to satiate the never-ending appetite for physical space to drop off your 2 tons of shiny metal that sit idle the majority of the day.
Where did you find that?
Some kid back in town. Traded the van for it, straight up. I can get 70 miles to the gallon on this hog.
Do you know what a cheap bike costs? Somewhere around $300, plus minus. The very used bike that I rode every year during med school without maintaining it even once cost me $100. Never had a problem with it. The cheapest new car you can buy is pretty much always above $10,000, and a used car, well, you can probably get one for like $2,000, but you'll be riding a death trap that'll constantly break down.
Look, there's no engine. It just has a drawing of an engine.
But it only had one previous owner. James Bond.
I'll take it.
This isn't even mentioning car infrastructure. 1 kilometer of highway in the US costs between $1 and $6 million to build. Do you want to know how much a kilometer of cycle traffic costs? Roughly $50,000. Parking your car, especially if you're renting a spot, can cost upwards of $1,000 a year. Parking your bike is either pennies or absolutely free. So far I haven't even mentioned the true heroes of sensible transportation, public transport. But Hakim, there's no public transportation near me. Exactly, and I wonder why that is. It's practically a truism at this point that in the US there was a massive conspiracy to basically strip public transportation in order to benefit the automobile industry for those sweet, sweet profits.
Where Toontown once stood will be a string of gas stations, inexpensive motels, restaurants that serve rapidly prepared food.
Of course, the situation is way more complex than this, but this doesn't change the fact that the US political establishment is incredibly resistant to public transport. Yet again, capitalism is ruining our lives in the most benign but most long-lasting ways. Here's California's high-speed rail system. And here's China's. Hell, even within the realm of limp-dick social democracy, you have cycle infrastructure like the Dutch, compared with what this mess is. Bikes also don't need fuel, and monthly or yearly public transport passes are pennies compared to gas prices. But Hakim, my commute would be so much longer with public transportation. Yeah, no, that's still suburban car brain talking. With the current sorry state of public transport most places, yeah. What the US needs is a major overhaul of its entire transportation network, something that would cost a fraction of the US military budget and actually, benefit the American people and economy. Likewise for pretty much every other country out there. Cheap, efficient, easily accessible, and well-developed public transportation systems mixed with intelligent, dense urban planning isn't a pipe dream because other places have done it. All you need is the political will, really. This also leads into a side topic of urban planning, but cities built around car use make no sense. Denser cities, with less car traffic and more pedestrian, bike, and public transport traffic, means more people spending time where businesses are, meaning more purchases and more stimulation of our dying economies. Living a 5-minute tram ride from a pleasant cafe or restaurant, no, not fucking Arby's, is better than having to jump into a car and drive 25 minutes for the same thing. Cars paradoxically de-incentivize this form of economic stimulation by keeping you far away from where everything decent is, as well as costing you a fortune getting there in gas. Reading the stats, every $1 invested in public transportation generates $5 in economic returns. Every $1 billion invested in public transportation supports and creates approximately 50,000 jobs. Every $10 million in capital investment in public transportation yields $30 million in increased business sales. This is just the beginning. Denser cities, too, means a higher concentration of skilled and talented people that can actually do something economically productive rather than rot in the suburbs of, I don't know, Boise, Idaho. Is it pronounced Boise? Bois? Boy? I don't fucking know, man. Moving on, traffic congestion costs upwards of $80 billion every single year in the US. Similar numbers are reported in Australia, the UK, and other countries. Hundreds of millions thrown away each year because we like velocity built with dinosaur juice. There is a better way. Point being, mixed-use development city planning, meaning you live in an urban center in a multi-story building where the first floor has stores and businesses and all the floors above that are housing, mixed with efficient and reliable public transport infrastructure means nicer, cleaner, healthier, and more pleasant cities. A better world is possible. I won't go on too long on this, but it's easier to transition rail, tram, and bus fleets to renewable energy than individual passenger cars because there simply are far less of them, by virtue of simply requiring far less of them too. A single tram line on a single busy street can carry thousands every hour, meanwhile the 100 cars clogging the same street can carry, well, you get the idea. Reduced emissions, blah blah, your air tubes will thank you, and so will the rest of the biosphere if it were sentient. Time. Yes, time. On average, 45 minutes a day is spent inside a car. In the US alone, Americans spend a collective 3.4 million years in traffic, usually as part of a work commute. This means nearly an hour every single day that's unproductive to you and uncompensated by your employer, a trip you nonetheless have to make, otherwise you lose your job and starve. Multiply that over a lifetime, and that's well over a year of your life spent idling in a jam as you hope to make it another month without paying for a Spotify subscription.
Come on, you bastard! I'm late for work! Oh, this is perfect.
And a bus or train, which by the way improve year by year, and have consistently proven to be a safer and more reliable mode of transport given investment in their infrastructure, all that downtime is spent sitting in comfortable seating with the possibility of sleeping, eating, chatting with people, or doing something productive with your time.
Oh, Bodie, I'm always gonna take care of you. You're the best boat in the deep blue sea.
What the fuck?
What are you, some kind of totalitarian Stalinist? Yes. And I'm coming for that toothbrush and your beat-up Camaro. So stupid. Joking aside, there's a lot of toxicity around car culture that's just all around unpleasant. You can like vintage cars and you can enjoy driving, but the weird American trend of attaching your masculinity to a pickup truck you haven't used to lift anything heavier than a 6-pack of beer is just silly to me. No one here is calling for a ban on driving, but you'd have to be blind to deny that there is a huge issue with modern urban design and car-centric modes of transport. It's messed up that someone living in a rural area, where living standards and incomes are usually lower, is practically forced to have a car to get around. Being serious for a second, accessibility and choice is what I want, and what is missing in many parts of the world. This is a conversation for another time, but I'm just throwing the thought out there for now. Walking, trains, buses, bikes! You have fleshy appendages that have the ability to, weight bear if you just give them the chance. And radical idea, these fleshy appendages can be used to generate a mechanical force that runs on not dead chicken ancestors, but concentrated plant sugars you shovel into your face orifice. When it comes to public transport, the issue has always been availability. Research has consistently shown that if there is the infrastructure for public transport, there is a reduction in vehicle traffic. In poo-poo terms, more buses means people choose buses and elect to use fewer cars. More money spent here means a better economy, healthier people, cleaner environment, and more aesthetically pleasing surroundings. It is the objective Chad choice. Of course, urban center reorganization, the phasing out of vehicle traffic, the building of infrastructure all will take time and money, but money spent now will pay dividends tenfold later. All that's missing is the political will. That's how China builds entire hospitals in 2 weeks, and the US takes 4 years to get a zoning permit looked at, let alone approved. Also, side point, car culture and segregation in the US wasn't discussed, but I recommend you look into it because it's messed up, like most things with American history.
Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They fade paradise and put up a parking lot. They took all the trees and put them in the tree museum. And they charter people dollars and a half to see them.
And that's all for this time. If you enjoy what I do, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help. I'd like to thank my patrons, so thank you to Leroy Brown, John, Firas Karani, Jack Riley, Gordon Russo, Starnord, Sweetie, Amro, Conrad Robbie, Andreas, John Durrell, Corey Christian, Carmat Liddy, Michael, Sapak, Nisreen, a gay baby, a gay baby, I'm assuming that's what's supposed to be, The Toaster 20, Benjamin Allen, Jonas, Anna Saschek, Tyler Depew, Ezra, Philip Novak, and Matthew Foy. Thanks for watching.